Okay, there's probably at least a dozen of you here now, so I'm going to get started. I'll speak slowly so that I don't race through things too quickly in case others are joining in, but I don't want to have you guys just sitting around. I'm sure you're all just as busy as I am, and so I don't want you just sitting waiting for things to get underway. So you should all be able to see my screen now. I'm talking about this special edition of the HAPS Educator that we're planning. And those of you who were at the annual conference back in may have attended the session, the workshop where we talked about it. But here I'm just going to talk about it a little bit more and also give you links and information about how to submit that now are associated with the new version of the website, just so that it's very easy for people to figure out what to do. So as you know, the HAPS Educator does publish 3 times per year usually, and then every once in a while we will do a special edition if we have a particular topic that we want to address. And so what we had been thinking about was to do a special edition having to do with using games in education. It is a very current topic, a hot topic. I'll show you examples of some publications that we've had already that have to do uh, with games and using games in A&P education. But we'll tell you a little bit about games and gives you examples of different kinds of games that you can use when you're teaching students. Some of you may not even realize that you're actually already using something that would qualify as a game or a gamification approach. And then we'll go through the submission process, as well as our planned timeline with regards to gathering up the manuscripts for this special edition, getting them through the peer review process, and getting them all together so that we can publish them hopefully by the the middle of next year. So what you're looking at here, a couple of these pictures on my opening slide come from things that I do. I do use crossword puzzles with my students, and more recently, I get them actually to assemble very simple jigsaw puzzles as well, because it gets them to really look at, and it doesn't have to be anatomical, it could be physiological, where they're looking at a graph, and usually students will just quickly look at the graph and think they understand it. But if they actually have to put a few puzzle pieces together and then really look at the graph to answer a couple of questions that I'm giving them, then that is a form of a game because they're still doing something that's very interactive. And then, of course, there's escape rooms as well. And that is kind of in one of these days when I get time, that is something I really, really want to explore, is how to incorporate escape rooms into some of my education. So I'm hoping that maybe somebody will submit a manuscript where they have used escape rooms as well. Okay, so what is this notion of gamification, or what is game-based learning? It really became something that is a buzzword, I would say, starting around 2010. So it has been around for a while. This is sort of a simple definition of it. It refers to introducing game design elements and gameful experiences in the learning process. And you can find this reference at the end of my slides. And basically, if you're using games at all in any way, it now becomes much more student-centered, the learning, rather than you standing at the front of the class and imparting to them the information that you want them to know and to spit back when they're answering exam questions. Now they are driving the bus a little bit, and they are trying out games, even getting a chance to try them again, seeing how quickly they can do them, and so on. So it allows them to explore. It allows them to take up challenges. It allows them to even not be successful or give the wrong answer and then go back and try again, which I think is very helpful for learning as well. It's one thing to know that, oh, I didn't have the right answer for that question, but it's another thing to go back and give them a chance to think about it a little bit more, talk about it with their peers, and then figure out what the right answer is. I had a student actually email me yesterday because she was doing one of the crossword puzzles, and she said, this term that I want to put in, it's not fitting, and I can't think of what the term is that's supposed to go there. And of course, I'm not going to give her the answer for the crossword puzzle, but I said, go back, look at the muscle slides. It's a term you're going to see when there are names of some of the muscles. And right away, this email came back and she said, even before that, even after I sent my email, I suddenly thought of what it was. So it's getting her to think about it a little bit more and do it herself and get that satisfaction as well out of getting the right answer herself. Okay, so some examples of games. Uh, in general terms, games, you can do it in person in your classroom. I, for the most part, teach huge classes of between 200 and 300 students. So it gets a little more challenging to do games within the classroom. But many of you are lucky enough that you have much smaller classes, and then you can get students into small groups and even have groups compete against one another and so on. So they can be played in person. Most of the games that I use are games that are done online, and students might be doing them individually. They might be pooling their resources as they're doing them. But even if they're doing it together and answering the questions or filling out the crossword puzzle as a group of them working together, it means they're still discussing the material and thinking about the material, and that's got to foster some learning. So they can be played in small groups, they can be done individually. You want to design them in such a way as they are being challenged to apply bits and pieces of things that they have learned in the classroom. And then in your games, you can provide rewards. When I'm having them do my online games, whether it's a jigsaw puzzle and answering some questions, or fitting the names of bones and muscles into a crossword puzzle. Once they submit that, once they complete the assignment, then they are, it counts for a little bit towards their final remarks, mark. So there can be rewards. The games usually give them immediate feedback as to whether or not they're getting the answer right. And I try as much as possible for the games to give them opportunities to try again. So I've used Jeopardy in the classroom, even in huge classes. I have to kind of modify my approach to make it work, but it's a fun game. It's often a fun one to do right at the beginning of the term when students are just getting to know one another and coming to class. And it has a sense of competition associated with it. You could do trivia games. You can do hangman, escape rooms. These are the two that I tend to use, especially with regards to my A&P classes. There can be board games. I've been working for a number of years on developing a board game for diabetes. And I'm there with the physical board game, but I need to find a way to make it an online board game so that it's really much more accessible to my students. Because again, even when I'm teaching about diabetes, it's usually pretty large classes. So we can't sit there in class and crack out the game boards and start playing a game. But it could be something that they could do in groups online once I figure out how to be able to do that and get the time to be able to convert it. Video games, interactive stories where they choose different pathways to go down and then look at the results of choosing those different pathways. And speed runs where they're now competing against the clock to try, and that would be good for drilling names of muscles, names of bones, names of other structures, so that they get much more familiar with those names and able to come up with those names as quickly as possible. So there's all different kinds of things. And some of these things, like you might not think that a crossword puzzle is a game, but it is. It's interactive. They're trying to think of things. When I develop the crosswords, the clues I develop come right from the stuff they're learning in class. And it helps them with their spelling, which, as we all know, is a huge hurdle for students. And one of the most common questions I get as they go in to write an exam is, does spelling count? And so if they have to fit the word into the crossword puzzle, they're saying it out loud, they're thinking about the letters. And I really think it helps not only with linking the word with the right course concept, but also getting a little bit more confident with their spelling as well. So how can games promote learning? They do engage student interest, whether they're studying on their own and trying to decide, well, should I do a little bit of reading in the textbook for a while, or should I try out this game and see how much I know already? And I know what I would choose if I was having to choose between those two, and I think almost all the students would do that as well, is you'd go with the game first because the game is going to be fun, and then you might go to reading the textbook afterwards. So it does grab their interest. Or if you're doing a game with the class and you're having them compete in small teams against one another, you're going to grab their interest. Promotes interactive learning and self-testing as well. So it'll give them some feedback for pretty low stakes. I mean, to complete one of my crossword puzzles, which probably means they have to fit 25 words into the puzzle, it counts for 0.75% towards their final grade, but that's enough incentive that they're all going to do it, so that they can earn that 0.75. So they are motivated to do it. Whether they're competing with themselves or with others is something that can come into as well. The rewards, as I said, they can be intrinsic or extrinsic. The extrinsic would be my giving that 0.75 of a mark for completing the crossword puzzle and getting all of the words right. Because it's not just to complete it. Oh, I'm seeing in the chat, one of my students submitted a crossword she made as part of our competition, but she misspelled one of the words so no one could get it right. That's hilarious. I always go through and double check when I'm doing them, thinking, oh dear, I hope it will not look good if I am not spelling this right when I'm developing it for the kids. But yeah, but then once you corrected that, I bet it gave them a chance to think about that for a while and get more familiar with what they were trying to fit into the puzzle. And it does provide opportunities to keep trying until you can get it right. And I do that with my puzzles as well, because I said, you're going outside Brightspace to do your puzzle, and then you take a screenshot once you've finished it with your score and you submit it. So if you do it the first time and you have 3 errors, you can go back and do the whole thing again, and then finally keep doing it until you get it all right if you want, and then get your full 0.75. But it means, again, they've spent more time with those words and those clues putting together that puzzle. So the opportunity to keep trying until you get it right is okay, even if it means they're always getting perfect scores. It's not a huge percentage of their mark, and it hopefully means that they can do better on the exams, which do count tremendously towards what their final grade is going to be. Okay, just a few examples of publications that have involved using games, and these are publications that have all appeared over the past small number of years in the HAPS Educator. So we've got this one by McAfee, a puzzling physiology and Nobel laureates game. And I'm not going to go through the details of the game, but this was a game, it was a smaller class, so they were able to work in groups. They were given a presentation where there were clues in the slides that would help them put together the name of the laureate they were looking for. Then they would go to the site to go through the different Nobel laureates to find their person. They would they could discuss amongst themselves, figure out what they were going to say. And then to solve the puzzle, they had to give the name of the person and what it was that they did to contribute to our overall understanding of anatomy and physiology. And the laureates that they used in their puzzle games were Hill, also Krebs, and Warren and Marshall. So it links to stuff that they're learning either in A&P or in pathophysiology. So it does link to learning objectives. And that's one thing you have to be careful about with your game as well, is it's okay to have a game that is fun, but it has to be a game that's going to have some learning value to it. So it's worthwhile for the students to put their time and effort into playing that particular game. And so you always have to keep the learning objectives in mind and the targets with your game in terms of what you want them to learn and understand. And the other thing you want is, you don't want your game to be so challenging just to do the game, like there's so many rules and regulations with the game, or the game is so hard that it loses its learning value, because so much of each student's effort is going into just understanding how the game works. So it takes some time to work with the different games and to get them to be at the right level for whatever course it is that you're teaching. This is another one. This is a board game. So it's a physical board game at the present time. I should keep an eye to see if they convert it into online and then get them to share with me how they were able to do that. So Survival of the Physiologist, a human anatomy and physiology game. And so basically they have to go through 4 different environments. And as you look at this board, you can see that there's individual challenges, group challenges, other squares that they land on that might allow them to move forward, or they have to go backwards. So it's a typical type of board game where with the physical game, you would have cards where you have to answer things. And underneath here, you're just seeing some examples of some of the questions. So this one is a group question card about the type of bone. This one is an individual question card. And then they have whole class question cards as well. And again, this could work really well if you have a small enough group of students and enough game boards and supplies that you could have them working in small groups for a little while and just playing this game and reviewing some of the things that they have learned. So this was published in 2019 in the HAPS Educator. And then my final example, also published in 2019, is a flavor perception game where students were given candies to taste that have flavors associated with them that they didn't know what the flavors were. And then they had to discuss amongst themselves as each one tasted that candy what it was that they thought they were tasting. And so it's a fairly simple, straightforward game, but it's still getting them to talk to one another about the different taste modalities and just even seeing that different people taste things different ways as well as an interactive game. So the HAPS Educator, even over and above this special edition that we're putting together, has accepted publications with regards to games in the past, and would continue, of course, to welcome those sorts of publications, even if you don't have something that's ready to go in time for the special edition. And just to finish up my part of this talk, and then I'm going to throw it over to Brenda to talk to you about the actual submission process and our timeline. These are the 3 types of articles that we publish, and many of you probably realize that already. And when you're talking about using games in learning, depending on what it is that you've done or what you want to talk about in your manuscript, it could fall into any of these 3 categories. The educational research papers are the ones where you really have to have done some research. You have to have tried something, and you have to have collected data that you then statistically evaluated, and then you discuss at the end of your paper. And sometimes authors will submit a paper and I think they always choose educational research because it's always at the top of the list. And they just think, well, this is sort of a research paper, I'm going to choose that. And sometimes it actually falls into the 3rd category, perspectives on teaching. And I'll reach out to them and I'll say, this may have trouble with review as an educational research paper, but it might do quite well under perspectives on teaching, because now you need to have tried something in the classroom. You need to have described what you've tried. You might be observing how it's working if you're doing it in the classroom, or you might have collected survey data from your students in terms of their feedback on what they thought about that particular activity. And that's where this falls in. So you don't need to have a whole bunch of hard data that you can statistically analyze, but you have to have tried something new. You have to situate what you are doing in the literature. So you still should start off with some sort of an introduction where you cite other work that's been done in the field. And then you say what you are doing, and you describe your methods very completely so that if somebody else wanted to try it, they would be able to do it. And then you talk about what you've learned from doing that particular activity. So this can work really well for trying out different games in the classroom as a different way of writing up your paper. And then the middle one is called Current Topics. It's like a literature review on a particular topic that pertains to teaching. And so we might get 1 or maximum maybe 2 for this special edition that is a current topics. If that's what you're thinking of writing up, and you'll see both my email address and Brenda's towards the end of these slides, I'd encourage you to reach out to us first just to make sure somebody else hasn't picked that particular general topic to talk about with regards to gamification, because there's not going to be several different topics that you could address in a manuscript as a literature review. And I wouldn't want 2 people to be putting a whole bunch of time and effort into a current topics paper where both of them are very, very similar. So I would say maybe reach out if that's what you think you want to try, and then I could make a note. And then if somebody else wants to do that, I can tell them this is kind of already being tackled. You can see if this person wants to work with you, or you could see if there's something different that you want to do. All right, I am going to stop talking now so that Brenda can start talking, and I'll move it on to the next slide and turn off my mic.
So now we're going to transition into showing you how you find out more information about, excuse me, the journal in general, and also how you submit your article for the special edition.
Brenda, you need to be louder.
I need to be louder. Thank you. The submission guidelines are listed at the top of the screen. So this is the website, and you can click on this or find it on the HAPS website. And this will show you the specific guidelines. It will describe some of the information Jackie's already just presented about the different types of manuscripts. And also it will provide for you information about how to format your manuscript, how to cite references and include the reference list at the end of the document, and other information that will help you craft your paper so that it is in the format for the HAPS educator. And this is open to everyone. Perfect. And I just saw that Caitlin put the link in the chat box. So this website also describes for you the peer review process. And this is one of the things that I think is such a tremendous asset, um, and a benefit of publishing with the HAPS educator, in that you receive both prompt and careful feedback with the intention of crafting and providing suggestions to about your paper for how to get it published. Our goal is to share with others your creative ideas, educational research, or latest thinking on how games are used in education. And so we really work hard to get that process, your manuscript ready for publication. And this is a really great experience overall for people, for authors. It also will provide some information about formatting figures too, which is helpful in moving forward. I would really encourage anyone who is thinking about writing a manuscript for this special edition, who has not already submitted to the HAPS educator, to really take these guidelines to heart, because it will make a much faster and more seamless review process for you. So once you've looked through these guidelines and you would like to submit your article for review, this is our website where you can click on, and it is also embedded on our main website page up here, where you can submit the manuscript. And so this is an online process that will serve both as an easy method for you to submit your article, and also will provide you with email updates in response to how, the process of your manuscript. So when you click on that last link, it will bring you to the screen that you see before you now. And if you are somebody who's already published, you have set up a login, and so you will be able to log in from that screen. If you are a new author with the HAPS educator, what you will want to do is click on where you see the red arrow, the new users register here. And so we strongly, you will need to create a profile for yourself in order to submit your article. And this is to your advantage, because this is the process by which you will receive emails that update you as you are going along in the publishing and review process. So in the next screen is a screenshot of the process of what it looks like when you are submitting your article. So we have boxes in this red star or asterisk immediately to the left of the word shows that this is a necessary part, right? And some of it is rather obvious in that obviously you would want a title for your manuscript. And other parts are really important, but may not be obvious to people. So we have highlighted them. At the bottom, you will see in the red box, this is the place where you can specify if you would like your manuscript to go into this special edition on gamification. So just to be really clear and transparent, you are welcome to submit any manuscripts for our ongoing process. But if you want them considered for this special edition, please click yes on the box here so that we know what your intention is and also where to publish your manuscript appropriately. If you'll go to the next screen, perfect. So that is the process that leads you through. The website provides a really clear way of proceeding through. And of course, if you ever have questions, please always feel free to reach out to either Jackie and I, or both. Our deadlines are strongly suggested for December 24th, but also if December is a very busy month for you, recognizing that it's end of year and holidays, as well as end of the semester for many of us, and you cannot submit until January, we are still happy to accept that. But anytime now until December, ideally, but including January, is the time to get your manuscript in. We will review it, and you will be assigned an overseeing editor who will then send out your manuscript to be reviewed by people who have volunteered to be a reviewer for the HAPS Educator. This typically takes, 4 to 6 weeks is a reasonable expectation. And then you will receive the reviews back so that you can make adjustments. Most manuscripts are sent back to the author with either minor adjustments or, strong or clear instruction about how to make a major revision. And so this is our way of helping you produce the best publishable product that represents your work the best that we can in the manuscript. And then we will have our manuscripts accepted and set up for the special edition. We're expecting to publish that, in the middle of next year. And so that gives us a little bit of time to make final edits on Jackie's and my end, and then proceed to the special edition, which is a perfect tie-in to any questions, or, if you have any questions about how to submit or an idea, or what type of manuscript your idea would be, please feel free to ask now, and also always reach out via email with questions.
Okay, I've stopped sharing so that we can see one another, but we can always go back to the slides if we need to. The only other thing I might add is we already have one manuscript that has gone through the whole review process and is accepted for the gamification edition, and a second one that's undergoing revision. So we've started. We've made a start, but we're happy to welcome as many that has come in, and get them launched into the review process. And even as you're thinking about your manuscript, I've had a couple of people reach out to me by email and say, I'm thinking about writing up this. Do you think this would work? So feel free to run an idea past either of us, because we'd be happy to give you some feedback and suggestions and let you know, yeah, go ahead. This sounds like a great idea, or yeah, this could work. Probably just make sure you've got this or that to make sure that it will go through the review process seamlessly. And of course, that's where the time happens. That's where it does take time to get manuscripts all sorted out as they go out to reviewers. Sometimes we're lucky, and the first time we ask 2 people to review, they jump in right away, they get it done quickly, and we get the results back. Sometimes we don't hear back from them for a while, then we chase after them and it takes longer. And then the second thing, of course, just depends to what extent revisions are needed. And sometimes it's minor revisions that are done, within a few days, and the manuscript is back and it's ready to go. Sometimes it requires a little bit more work and a little bit more time. And that's why we've kind of given these broad timelines and are trying to make sure we're giving everybody enough time, not only to write up their paper, but to get it through the review process and for them to have time to make their revisions as well. And of course, it's not a hard date. It's not saying, July 15th, that's when this edition is coming out, but we're aiming for kind of in between finishing up the spring edition and finishing up the summer edition. So somewhere in the middle of the summer is when we'd probably like it to come out. And it's probably good timing as well for people who might want to try something in the fall term as they read about these different games. But our timing is not hard and fast. Even those of you who regularly read the HAPS Educator know it's not absolutely April 30th and August 30th and December 30th that it comes out. It's sometimes a few days later, because we're all crazy busy people and we'd rather have it look really good than to rush it and make mistakes. I don't think there's anything in the chat. Did anybody have anything they wanted to? And please don't feel shy to ask any questions. Or if anybody has something, is anybody trying anything that they think might work in writing something up? Or do you might just need time to think as well. Do you have any ideas? Okay, what do you think, Brenda? Probably, oh wait, if you're looking to try and put things online, try making connections with
Computer science folks.
comp sci profs.
Yeah, so I that's a really great suggestion. You know, not, and I would say it's really helpful to do compute, to ask computer science faculty if you're at a large institution with multiple departments that are very outside of your field. And also sometimes, at least here, we have a process by which we can engage students if they are willing to make this like a major project. And that would really be an opportunity to facilitate student learning and also carry out the game that you would like to implement. Great suggestion.
Yeah, it is a good idea. And it's something I keep saying to myself that I have to do is reach out to Algonquin College here in Ottawa because they have a whole uh, department of games and students who are creating video games all the time. And I just think, oh, if I could get a couple of those students who know how to do those things, then I could probably do it. And most of my challenge is just finding the time because one is constantly teaching or making up exams or marking exams or answering student emails. And it's to find the protected time to do that. But I would like to do it. And somebody put something about escape rooms. I'm just backing up the chat. I've done some escape room activities in class, small sections, so small number of students, and just have opinion data. Is this something of interest? That could probably work for a teaching perspectives because you don't need hard data. If your opinion data is feedback from students in terms of how they found it, you can summarize it, or you can, people have also provided representative quotations from students without identifying the students, anonymous quotations where they give some feedback on it. And I'm interested in anything on escape rooms because I really want to try that. So I think that could work. It would, I'd say you're aiming for teaching perspectives category with that, but that could work. I have two comp sci projects, students doing projects with me, so it sounds like you're going to have something. Okay, so this sounds promising. Hisham, please go ahead.
Oh, hi. Yeah, so thank you for this wonderful presentation, and it's very encouraging for everyone to contribute to this. How many manuscripts are we expecting for this special edition, and what if the number was not, like, did not reach what you're expecting?
I mean, when we publish our regular editions, we're usually somewhere between a low of 6 and a high of maybe 10 papers per edition when we're doing regular editions. We can handle whatever we get. So we're not going to put an upper limit on it. It just might mean it's not July 15th. It might be it's July 30th when it comes out. But we're happy to welcome as many as we can. They just go through the review process, and then Katie's fabulous at putting everything together. So we don't have an upper limit. We would like to see, I'm really hoping that we will get at least 6 or 8, but if we're more at 10, 12, even more, we would be thrilled.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good.
And we will not fail to publish this as a special issue, even if it is smaller. So please don't think for one second that your hard work won't be published.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, and if something comes in and it's not really right for the gamification edition, but it's still a good publication, then we would just say, is it okay if we put it in the summer edition or the fall edition? It would go somewhere.
Yes.
But we just thought it would be fun to just bring stuff together with regards to games, because I think everybody wants to try them to some extent with their classes, and students welcome them. And so we'll just see what comes in.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking, like, what if we didn't have enough number, but apparently, like, we'll have maybe like not just the enough, but might be even more than what we are expecting. Yeah.
I think we'll be okay, because I know some people are working on them. I know there's been at least a couple of people who've reached out to me, and I've been very positive about, yes, go ahead and do this. I think, and we've got 2 already, like one fully through and the other one going under revision. So we've already got a start.
Perfect.
And we've got still tons of time for them to come in. And there was interest when we did the workshop back in May, there was interest. And I think there were people that were going to start writing things up. So I don't think we'll have trouble meeting our minimum. And if it takes us a little bit longer, like if some of them are a little bit stuck in the review process, then it'll come out a little bit later in 2025 so that we can make sure that we get all of those papers into it.
That's very assuring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question. Okay, I should get you guys to do a show of hands. Who thinks they're going to submit? But I won't. I won't, because this is being recorded. But I'm really hoping that we'll get some submissions coming in. Right now, of course, we're working on submissions for the edition to come out the end of December. But then I'm really hoping we'll just start seeing them that are coming in and are getting evaluated for the special edition on games. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions, so maybe we'll let you guys go, and I'll just wait for your submissions. And do, as I said, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, even as you're just starting to put it together and you're wondering something. Before you put a ton of time into it, just reach out and ask a question, because that might really just clarify things for you as you're trying to do it. And maybe look at those references, the ones that have been published about games as well, to get some idea of the sort of information that's put in there. Okay, thank you so much to everybody for coming. We really appreciate it. The slides, there's a question in the chat about the slides. So the slides, I'm going to let Caitlin answer that, because she's the expert about what's going to happen to those.
Yeah, so we're going to save the slides and the recording behind the members paywall on hapsweb.org. So there's a part of the website that says recording or webinars, and it's under webinar recording. So it'll be there hopefully by end of the day today.
Okay, and could we put up just the separate slides as well if somebody just wants to look up something in the slides?
100%. Yep, the slides
Okay,
and the
perfect.
recording, sorry.
Yeah, okay, that would be great. All right. Okay, thanks everybody, and
Thank you,
hopefully
everyone, for
we'll see your
attending.
submissions.
And we can stop recording if you have questions that you would like to